Elliot was a young black musician born in the slums of New Orleans. He had been playing and singing on street corners with his guitar since his childhood, shouting his frustrations and hardships to the world. With every note, he emphasized his love for his family, the discrimination he experienced in society, and his hopes for the future. One day, she heard that the National Talent Show, one of the country's top music competitions, was opening for applications. The competition not only made the winner famous, but also offered the opportunity to make albums and music videos with the support of major labels. This opportunity could have been a breakthrough for Elliot. But when he filled out the application form, he felt a strange sense of unease. There had never been a black winner in the competition's history, and the systemic racism in society was everywhere. Still, he was confident in his music. A week after filling out the application form, Elliot received a rejection letter. The letter stated that his application was rejected because his style was not suitable for the competition. Despite the storm raging inside him, he sent an email to the company organizing the contest. In his letter, he said that the decision was unfair, belittling his music, and that he should be given a chance. His email reached Samantha, one of the judges of the contest. Samantha was a white musician who had been well established in the music world for years and was known for her stance against racism. She was moved by Elliot's story and courage. She managed to get Elliot into the competition despite the other judges. When Elliot took the stage, the moment he stood in front of the crowd, he felt the pressure inside him. The judges were looking down on him, especially two of them, Amanda and Greg, who seemed to think that Elliot shouldn't be there. Amanda took the microphone and asked in a condescending tone, "Let's see if you can sing a real song." Greg rolled his eyes and focused on his notes, not even looking at Elliot. Elliot took a deep breath, picked up his guitar, and began to sing the song he had written. As his voice echoed across the stage, people in the hall were moved. His song was a story from the bottom of his heart, about love, loss, discrimination, and hope. Amanda and Greg, however, ignored the beauty in her voice and began whispering to each other with a cynical look on their faces. When Elliot finished his song, the hall erupted in applause. But the judges had a cold look on their faces. Amanda took the microphone and said, "Your voice is not bad, but it's too ordinary for this competition. Your style of music is old-fashioned, not up to the level of this competition," Greg added. Elliot's heart felt squeezed, his eyes welled up, but he said nothing. He quietly walked off the stage. Samantha, however, was losing patience as she watched what was happening. She could no longer ignore Greg and Amanda's racist behavior. She reached for the microphone and shouted, "Wait a minute!" The room went silent. "To ignore this young man's talent is to ignore music," Samantha said, turning to Amanda and Greg. "But the problem is not your ignorance of his talent, but your prejudice against him." Her singing was one of the best, most emotional performances this competition has ever seen. Amanda fidgeted in her seat, muttering, "It's not personal, Samantha. It's not her style." "No, Amanda, it's completely personal," Samantha retorted. "You are judging not only this young man, but all the people he represents. This is not about the music. This is about your racial prejudices." Backstage, Elliot could not hold back his tears as he listened to Samantha's words. Samantha's harsh words caught the attention of everyone in the room. Amanda and Greg looked at each other uneasily, while the other judges looked on in bewilderment. Samantha continued, "The fairness and transparency of this competition should be seriously questioned if you are belittling a talented young man like Elliot just because of his skin color." Amanda took a deep breath and said, "This competition is about music, Samantha. You know very well that Elliot's style is not modern. What does race have to do with it?" Samantha tried to remain calm and said, "Racism can sometimes be so subtle, Amanda." Greg, burying himself in his notes without even looking at Elliot's face, "Your condescending gestures reveal your view of this boy and everything he stands for. You rejected him not just for his music, but because of the color of his skin." Backstage, Elliot listened in amazement to Samantha's support for him. Before he had a chance to defend himself, Samantha was speaking for him. In that moment, He felt he was not alone. Greg finally spoke up. "You don't have to make a big deal out of it. We're just judging the talent of those on stage. We're not prejudging." Samantha gave a nervous laugh. "Greg, if you had judged real talent, you wouldn't have been so indifferent to Elliot's performance. But the problem here is not just the music, it's your stereotypical mindset." Even his acceptance to the competition was a struggle, because his application was rejected immediately because of the color of his skin. Samantha's last sentence brought a sudden silence to the room. The rest of the room was unaware of the incident, but they were hearing for the first time the truth behind the reason why Elliot's application was initially rejected. Elliot looked at Samantha backstage, unable to believe what he was hearing. The truth was now out. The guilt on Amanda and Greg's faces immediately gave itself away. Suddenly, one of the audience members stood up and started clapping. Then the others joined him and applauded. Soon the large auditorium was filled with people applauding Samantha's brave truth. It was a moment that will go down in the history of the competition. Greg and Amanda were completely overwhelmed by the reaction of the room. Greg fidgeted in his seat with a grimace and muttered, "Okay, maybe his application was a mistake." Amanda, still stubborn, tried to defend herself by saying, "I think his song was still mediocre." Samantha said one last thing before putting the microphone down. "This is not just a music competition. This is justice and equality taking center stage. Elliot, you are here with your talent, and no one can take that away from you." After these words, Samantha put down the microphone and got up to leave the hall. At that moment, Elliot came from backstage towards the stage. Everyone was looking at him intently, this time not just as a contestant, but as a symbol standing up against injustice. Elliot took a deep breath, looking out towards the crowd and the judges. "I'm here because I wanted to give you my music. Despite those who tried to silence me, I made my voice heard. Now it's your turn. Has my music reached you, or have you been blinded by your prejudices?" Another loud applause rose from the hall, this time stronger. This was not just simple applause. It was an admiring respect for Elliot's resistance, courage, and music. Greg and Amanda were completely caught off guard by the intense reaction of the room. Everyone understood that the competition was not fair. It wasn't just the applause that Elliot won. He made history that day as a voice for justice and equality. As Elliot stood center stage to the applause in the hall, tears began to fall from his eyes. It was one of the most difficult moments of his life, but it was also the moment when he felt the strongest. Her music, her voice, her presence was no longer just for herself. It was a reaction against those who belittled her, those who wanted to silence her, and those who were like her. As Greg and Amanda looked away, cornered, Samantha proudly walked up to Elliot. She came over and hugged him tightly. "I'm so proud of you," she said. As Elliot looked at Samantha to thank her, he realized that because of her, this challenge had become not just a competition, but a quest for justice. As the final moment of the competition approached, there was tension backstage. The organizers could not ignore the public outcry. The contest management took matters into their own hands and decided to re-examine Elliot's performance. The voting process was quickly launched. The audience was sharing Samantha's speech on social media and sending Elliot an outpouring of support. Finally, the jury announced their decision, and the votes from Greg and Amanda were as expected, negative. But the other judges and the public vote were overwhelmingly in favor of Elliot. The host of the contest took the microphone on stage and announced the winner. Elliot is this year's National Talent Show winner. The hall was filled with applause and screams. Elliot knew his victory wasn't just about winning a music competition. It was a symbol of overcoming obstacles, succeeding despite prejudice, and making her voice heard. As Greg and Amanda left, Samantha came up to Elliot and said, "Your talent should not have been overlooked. I'm happy you were brave and kept going." Elliot looked at Samantha and thanked her. "Thank you for this chance. This is our story." That night, Elliot made a big change. The jury system was changed because of Greg and Amanda's racist behavior. New regulations were put in place to ensure fairness. Samantha showed that music can be a source of resistance and courage. Elliot's victory marked the start of his musical career and his fight for justice. After that night, Elliot sang to speak out against discrimination and prejudice. That night, Elliot's voice of justice became everyone's. His voice spoke for all those who were silenced. That's the end of our story. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe to my channel to support me.